it wasn't like you just decided you wanted to do this. You've been helping enough, advising other funeral homes enough that now this seems like a logical next step.
Thanks for taking some time out today, a few minutes for me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, I guess I don't know where to begin, but anyhow, through the email chain, we kind of know what we're considering here. Yeah, just a brief background on me. I mean, I ran our funeral home for a good 20 years, sold it last year as an eight-figure exit, and I've spoken on a main stage for NFDA before, as Dennis has. Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm widely considered an expert in the space. I've won numerous awards, won Funeral Home of the Year. And yes, there's brokers in the industry that they help with financials and KPIs and help owners and managers try to understand how to operate efficiently. But I mean, there's no one in the space really presenting themselves as the expert who has been there, done it, and proved it. And I have, and I can provide all of that information from start to finish if it's worth it, if there's a
Yeah.
market, if
Yeah. I mean, I
time.
think you saw me and Dennis's, we both agreed that I think it's totally worth it, and your accolades speak for themselves. You're kind of what we talk about all the time is me and Dennis, we know how to cook, especially, and Dennis is teaching me stuff, and we're working together on a lot of projects that will be able to benefit people that are in your space and people that are in your shoes right now. But I think that we talk about this concept of they have to have the ingredients though, and we just know how to cook. And I think you definitely have all the ingredients that we look for. What are your thoughts, Dennis?
So Cody meets the criteria of what we call a lighthouse.
For sure.
Typically, the lighthouse is someone who's well respected in that industry. They've spoken, they have all the check marks that show that they are authoritative. They have a book, they have a following, they have an email list, they have some kind of group for all the other people in that industry. And the model we've seen the last 10 years has been private equity roll up. That's usually where the highest ROI is on the lighthouse. So that's where you see like Tommy Mello and Nielsen Silva and Roger Wakefield. These are all friends and clients of ours, right? You see it in basically high ticket. So medical, home services, like, roofing. And so the typical path is the lighthouse is using that leverage to be able to buy all the other guys out, right? Now, Cody wants to advise other people in the industry. So that's kind of a parallel model that's a three-tier expert system. And this is what, like a Tony Robbins does, or anyone who does any kind of coaching. Are you familiar with the three-tier model,
No,
Cody? So
no.
the ones who are motivated in helping serve because they've gone through the process of selling and growing, they usually have the first tier, the bottom tier of this pyramid. Now, not like a pyramid scheme, but a pyramid isn't like levels of price and intensity is this free tier. So tons of YouTubes and articles, and some people may even include a book there because you're not going to make money in a book usually when it's an industry focused kind of thing. Then mid tier is either a course, some kind of coaching, which is an extension of that book. The book lays out the framework of here's how you get your funeral home ready to sell, right? It is around, hey, at some point you want to sell your funeral home. Here is what the acquirer is looking for in terms of the financials and your operations and the way you do your books, the way you hire your people, the way like everything, you got to check all the boxes because due diligence is going to always uncover stuff that if you weren't prepared for, it's going to affect your valuation. It's going to delay things. You didn't do paperwork. There's lots of, especially in family-run businesses, they've never been subject to this kind of scrutiny, right? As you know, you've been through all this. So the book would be, how do you prepare for an eight-figure exit to be ready? So when the time comes, everything will work out smoothly. But to do that against this checklist that the acquirer is looking for, or the PE firm or whoever, or going public, same thing, you have to operate. So that goes to your question of having both parts. So there could be a group coaching or a course or something that's mid-tier. Usually mid-tier is going to be between $500 and $1,000. And you could make that a SaaS. There's different ways to do that. And then the top tier is you can actually have coaching from our group or coaching from me. And then that, high ticket can be 10 grand, 20 grand. Some people do it in a mastermind format where you meet in person, once or twice a year. It's some big event.
Yeah,
Or
I'm familiar with
like,
that because I'm in a couple of those. I mean,
okay. So you
I
understand how that means. So the top
right.
tier model, people will pay, and that those are people who are bigger, right? Who don't blink at those kinds of prices. Or it could be done as a mastermind, as like a monthly subscription, like $3,000 a month, something like that.
Hmm.
So all three tiers feed each other because the authority and the community and building the audience and being on social media, all that is the first tier that brings people to like a $500 one-time product or $200 monthly product, something like that, to a high ticket piece. But either way, it's the same framework that goes across the whole thing. And just it's kind of industry standard. Anyone who's doing coaching or consulting or whatever to follow this model because it's been so reliant upon digital, which, having an email list and this kind of thing. So there are thousands and thousands of like it's almost impossible not to do a three-tier model.
Yeah. Do you see potential or a roadmap of being able to drive the owners to me in order to be able to refer them to a broker or directly to a consolidator?
That I think is even smarter model because then it's not on you. Because
Right.
if you
Where
have yeah,
they would trust my referral to the consolidator.
yeah, because you're the owner operator and you're not seen as the shark. You're like one of us, right? Which is what
Right.
happened in the Lighthouse model.
Yeah, because these are consolidators are, they'll offer referral fees for that kind of thing.
Yeah. When you put out enough, like this is what Roger Wakefield is doing because he doesn't have the money for PE, nor is he organized as such. So when he helps another plumbing HVAC company sell, he gets a referral fee. But it's not seen as he's not seen as like a referral agent or an affiliate because he's the most well-known plumber in America.
Yeah, that's basically exactly kind of what I have in my head
Yeah.
of
So that's an easier model because then when you don't have to build the infrastructure to do all that, then all you need is thought leadership. So, 90 days would probably be enough time to put
still
together
important
all
though to
this.
have I think it's still important to be able to give the information on how to build their business and the courses or whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, I would say the majority of funeral home owners are they are caregivers first. They're not business people. They don't know how to run a business and
Yeah.
do that. And so that's kind of like I'm the opposite. I was a business person before a caregiver, and so I
Yeah.
understand how to build a business and drive customers and everything else that's involved with that and setting it up for a sale
Yeah.
eventually.
So you know about eMyth, you know about traction, you know about all these things where people who Sally bakes the cake, but she doesn't understand how to run the business, but she loves baking the cake.
Right.
So cool. No, 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 no. We're doing a call right now. No, yeah, thank you. Appreciate it though. So
Yeah, no, totally.
yeah. So basically the thought leadership piece, which shows you as something like we really we believe very much in that free tier where you're just sharing, you're coaching, you have some webinars that you then repurpose in other kinds of content. And especially now that AI can, take Zoom calls and turn them into all kinds of derivative content, right? Like we talked about at the NFDA and other places, right? So I think when you do that, that naturally will cause people to come to you without you ever needing to sell or you ever needing to do anything that feels like you're pushing anything. And they'll come to you. And then, unless you're doing it at scale, I think a simple one-on-one private conversation, which creates assurance where you discuss kind of what their situation is, can lead you to recommend, which broker or what, you know, how much they're, what things they're missing in order to be able to sell or what their funeral home is worth. A lot of people will do a calculator, right? Or book a call with me and we'll figure out what you're, because the multiple should be this based on profit. And here are the things that are, destroying your cogs because of the way your expenses are and your vehicles and your fleet and your people and your material, I don't know, whatever, all the stuff. And, which then, and so that times your multiples, your valuation and all this. So that you can build a calculator to do that very easily, as in
Mhm.
ChatGPT to do that. You could tie that with a kind of a coaching call that you can offer for free because you make money off the referral. But if you have the framework of all of that as part of a book and videos and whatever, that's easy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I just get caught up like in the logistics of all of it. I mean, creating it, putting it out there, building it, whatever. I mean, Is that, I mean, is that what you guys do for me?
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean,
We're the expert's expert.
yeah, exactly.
In the same way that you have these mom and pop funeral homes where they're caregivers, but they haven't really thought about the overall business thing and scaling and selling. We have people who are in that category where they're leaders in that industry, but they haven't thought about, for the same way, putting all their stuff out there in a particular framework like this.
Yeah.
So that's why we can go to, landscapers and the roofers and real estate people, like you're a real estate investor, right?
Yep.
That shows the authority that, if you check all those boxes. So if you are a great caregiver and you understand the business mechanics of being able to sell and all that, then how do we leverage that authority? And so what we do is we amplify the perceived authority, which is not this. We're assuming actual authority, actual experience, you have to have all those, the same way PE company or an acquirer is going to look for certain things. We look for those components of authority. And if those components are there, we can amplify your authority, which then causes the funeral homes to come to you. And then the whole funnel and all the marketing tech that's necessary which I think is what you're talking about, all of those pieces to put together, because we've done that over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have the authority, so that's
Yeah, but
that.
structuring the authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of I mean, just I know it's probably hard to quantitate without
In a second here.
we're so in such infancy of it, but I mean, what kind of time commitment are we looking at, like from on my side for something like this?
Well, we have to look at how much you have.
Yeah.
You've got all this speaking, you've got all this coaching, you have maybe some behind the scenes stuff. I imagine people who jump into coaching other folks in their industry on how to sell typically have a bunch of Zoom calls, or it wasn't like you just decided you wanted to do this. You've been helping enough, advising other funeral homes enough that now this seems like a logical next step. So if you have those bits, I would think, 4 or 5 hours a week to be able to, over the course of a few weeks should be enough to give us what we need to put these components in place to at least test.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a
Well,
big
I have plenty of
putting
time.
stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe in the monolith, need a year to build the spaceship kind of thing, and then we don't find out till then. I'm a big fan of, we make a few videos, or maybe, Jack and I fly out and see you, or you give us access to this library of items, and then we put out some pieces that we boost for $1 a day to members of NFDA or followers of these other guys that also do it, advisory or whatnot. And we find out very quickly in weekly cycles, weekly testing cycles. So, I mean, who knows? But maybe the nature, it's different in different businesses. So, like roofers are very easy. The bed spas are very easy, because we already know what's up. These women that initially, they're 45 years old and they do Botox and they open up their med spa. Now they want to sell, right? That's a very easy model, and they're already kind of camera ready. They don't understand the financials, but we already know what those issues are. And there's basically 4 guys that roll up that industry. And it doesn't take a lot because it's such a well-known model. And those people are already geared towards showing themselves in a thought leadership kind of way. Funeral homes, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's harder because the nature, I don't want to stereotype, but, older family members, not as up with technology or telling their story, or, this kind of thing. But if anything, that makes it easier because there's not a lot of competition.
Yeah, well, that's
There's one big guy that's
there.
buying up
Yeah,
everybody, right?
yeah, yeah. There's not any.
Everyone knows, right? And they're already, they all know the family guys are being eaten up by the one big guy, right?
Yeah, it's a tough industry to get to. I don't know, convince an owner to do something different than what they've been doing forever. It's
That's every industry.
Is it?
Yeah.
I feel like the funeral industry just lags so far behind because there's never any change.
That's what they tell me.
Unless there's a younger owner, like me. I mean,
Right.
I had to convince our buyer. I mean, they took me out to dinner multiple times and made me convince them, like, hey, why are we buying from a 44-year-old? I mean, typically it's a 65 and 70-year-old. What's going to stop you from opening back up and kicking our ass? And I mean, so they locked me down with a pretty tough non-compete, but anyhow, yeah, most owners are older, unless they have a child coming up in the business, or whether they're mid 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever. But getting them to understand, like, hey, here's the reasons why you should consider selling to enjoy your retirement after you've been getting out of bed 24 hours a day for the last 30 years. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I can come up with a list of reasons why people should more make their business more efficient and why they should sell.
And even if you weren't going to sell, you'd want to be more efficient anyway.
Absolutely.
Pass on to your son or daughter. And even if you didn't have a son or daughter that wanted it, that didn't want, I don't want to be in the funeral home business. Even if you didn't have all those other things, Cody, you're not, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're not there to try to convince everyone. There are going to be some people who see this, and that was the thing that Jack wrote about. There's enough of a slice of that slice to test that. Like
Mhm.
the emergency room isn't here to convince everyone that they need the surgery or they need to stop smoking or any of that, right? There are enough
Absolutely.
that want that, but because they're older and they're not the technology and all that stuff like you and I talked about when we had lunch that one time. Yeah, maybe I think based on what you're saying, and because I've thought about this in the last couple of weeks, since you've marinated these ideas in my head, that for funeral homes, it probably is going to take a few more kind of coaching kinds of consultative meetings where even if you've got the whole body of knowledge and the checklist and all these pieces, it's still probably going to take more kind of hand holding to guide them through those initial pieces, even if there is a broker or whatnot, that even to get them to that point. I don't think it's dragging the horse to the water, but there's going to be more just in the work that we've done with the NFDA and large and small operators. I don't mean to be rude or say this in the wrong way, but it has taken me more effort than I would have anticipated to get them to adopt very basic things in digital marketing.
Yeah. Well, that goes to my point.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just skeptical and slow on change or doing anything or any kind of progressive type methods that they haven't been working on in like 10, 15 years. Like just
I hear that,
changing
Cody,
their
more in
mindset.
funeral homes. Yeah, I hear that. I mean, it's almost like this refrain that everyone, even all the old folks say that themselves, right? Oh, I don't understand that we do things the old-fashioned way, and then they, like modern equipment, they don't do that, and so forget about teaching them Chat GPT, right? Which
Right.
is what we were trying to do.
Yeah,
But it's true, like yeah, in the world of funeral homes, that's what they all say among, like they amongst themselves, they have this reputation. They joke about it, right? But we have the perspective of seeing it across all these other industries. So while you say this, like we see the exact same thing. And of course, folks like Jack and I are biased because we're technology forward, because we
mm,
speak at all these conferences about these kinds of things. So like we kind of know. But yeah, funeral homes is harder. But I think there's a difference between people who know they need to change and know and like want to do this and know they need to pass things on and know that they want to acquire because their son or daughter doesn't want to take over the family business or all these other reasons, right? They know they need to do it versus like there's people that don't need convincing, but they still need more handholding, if you know what I mean. And that's where I think the opportunity is.
for sure. I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's a simple pilot. I mean, why
Mm,
not do a month or two of put the stuff out there? Worst case is you put out a best-selling book, and that's there to help other people where they can learn. Best
sure.
case is we find that as you grow this list of funeral homeowners, enough of them will progress through this thing. Maybe we do a calculator, or we do a couple webinars, or we do like something that then enough teaching that so that we have qualified people that book a call with you and they have this high authority conversation, which then leads you to refer. But it feels like we want it to feel like an emergency room where there's clear need. They're coming to you. And based on this, you can make a recommendation for a broker or advise them on what a sale might look like, or how long it would take, or how much money they're going to get, or what are the gotchas they have to overcome with their P&L, or the way they operate, or the way that, things that
Mhm.
there's going to, when you take a look, maybe they're embarrassed. They don't want to open up the hood and you look at this and see that their whole thing is a disaster, right? Who's going to want to acquire this, right? It's like inviting a guest into your house and you're a hoarder.
Yeah, for sure.
But, worst case is we do a month of building these assets, have a webinar or two, leverage the influence you have, turn them into social posts that we boost because the whole dollar a day thing
Mm,
and see what happens. Maybe we find that all these people want to attend the webinar and we build the email list at a cost of, $12 an email or whatever it is. And we know that when we sell, this is how much we make off the brokers. We try to do the math on how many of these turn into, this is typical business math of lead gen, right? What you pay for the lead versus what percent convert and what that's worth, that math, right? And we see how the math works and we find out within 1 month. in a pilot case with some pilot content, not the most polished content, not beautiful cinematic stuff, but enough just to ballpark the question you're asking, which is, will this work? Is there enough demand? No, I don't have a magic ball.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Jack and I think it's, well, only cost a few $1,000s to test and find out. Want to find out?
Yeah. I mean, I don't see why not. Just the fact that there's no one else in the space that's the actual owner or former owner, whatever,
Yeah.
doing it, you know. I mean, I see it across all your other clients and your other in other professions and industries. You know, there's always an expert or guru or whatever the term is for that person.
I don't like guru or any of that sort of talking head stuff. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I see it. So what is the relationship between you two guys? Jack, do you have your own company? Are you part of Blitz or like what's the deal?
Yeah, so me and Dennis are actually partners. I have my own company, and right now, what I'm currently up to is I own my own company called High Rise Influence. So I help founder-led business owners like yourself to amplify a brand that is already there, to elevate their authority. Just like Dennis was talking about at the beginning of this meeting. And then I recently acquired, I own 49% of a tree service coaching company. So we have courses and masterminds, much like the three-tier system that Dennis was talking about. And then I also work at a private equity firm, just like 20 hours a week. And I'm a strategic growth consultant for them up in Minneapolis. I have an office there, so it's pretty cool. Been able to get integrated into a lot of things, and it's been fun to be able to build out a bunch of stuff with Dennis. And now we're partnering on products, and we're co-writing a book together and doing a ton of business stuff together.
Jack's
Good
teaching
deal.
me all kinds of crazy stuff because he's
Of
using
course.
AI to build stuff. So it's weird. Like I feel fraudulent where all these conferences or whatever want me to talk about AI and whatnot. And meanwhile, I'm learning from folks like Jack who's showing me the like I'm the old imposter, but I guess like I'm the bridge between
Yeah.
the Jacks of the world and then trying to make it digestible for everyone else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. Yeah. That's good. So is there I don't know, like maybe the model that you guys think would work best for me? Like is there a few names I should write down and go look at? I mean, it's that might be comparable.
I actually wrote out a campaign project map for you specifically. I can send that over or just drop it in the chat too. Let me
I
just see.
also did some homework before we got on the call.
Yeah. Or we're on Facebook. So if you see the people that I'm hanging out with,
Uh-huh.
Facebook, like anyone from the last month, that gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, I see you all over the place.
It's not
See you
like
coming to
it
Houston
was done
too
at
on your
once, right?
worldwide tour.
I love co-creating content with these other folks. Like my buddy Carlton Washington, he found this was just last week in Miami. He founded Forever Young. So he was, this buff guy and started a functional medicine place that does like the TRT and IV therapy and all these things for like successful entrepreneurs that are trying to get more health. And then he turned that into a business and it's got 100 locations now, which is
Oh.
scaling up that guy's influence
Mhm.
and then his network. And he knows everybody and everybody at a certain point in an industry, everybody knows that, everybody because it's so small when you're at that top level, right? So we've done a lot of in-person filming, which is what the big boys like, but we also will do stuff like these Zoom calls, and then we have our VAs and other team members do the work while we do this strategy and this kind of thing on your assets that you own. So
Yeah.
kind of like a two-tier approach.
Yeah.
And I've sent this campaign plan to you, Dennis. I think you read it in the email.
Yeah.
So I can
Yeah,
just
I
share
think that's pretty good. It looks like ChatGPT helped you on it, but I like it.
definitely. But when you train the model to be able to understand your business and understand the project, then it really is your words just coming through. You know what I'm saying? It's like not that I'm
It's not like this is rocket science magic. I mean, this is a well-known framework that anyone who's an expert in an industry is there to leverage that influence to other members of the industry to follow the same path they have, which requires a checklist, cookbook, calculator, some kind of thing so that people can see, will this path work for me? But as far as I can tell, because there's a lot of people named Cody Jones and all this other stuff, you have not produced those materials. So we need to have the materials in order for us to test how it performs at different points all the way through to, a successful sale to a broker.
Yeah, right. No, there's not anything out there just floating around on the internet. I would say.
But
I mean,
we've seen it
a lot
enough
of
in
them and
movies.
everything were just internal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, I
Yeah.
don't have YouTube videos and all that. None of that content has been produced. If that's
Like
what
that
you're,
has in that framework, which you can open up your screen share to show or whatnot. If we can just get it out of your head or get it at, easiest way, record a whole bunch of videos together, which then turns into your checklist in the book and the webinar flow, the 3-tier piece,
yeah,
then that gives us something to play with. I mean, we know the model from other industries. We've not seen it in funeral homes.
You guys
just
should see.
I mean, I had a whole Notion dashboard for the funeral home. I mean, there's no funeral home owners that have all their data for employees and processes and everything else. I mean, I built that out to really kind of help the buyers
Yeah.
so that it would create a little value. So, it'd be less work on their part once they came in.
Yeah.
Things like that.
I think literally if you have like what you have in Notion and then that against the framework of, hey, the reason why you're coming through this book or course or video is because you want to look at, explore what it'd be like to sell your funeral home, what it would be worth, and what the factors, what the steps are necessary to do that and unlock the highest valuation to fix those operating problems now.
Mhm.
And I think provided we have a framework, which is kind of like a table of contents combined with stuff that you already have, and then a 2 or 3 hour in person or a Zoom, that should give our team enough ingredients to assemble all these components for a lightweight prototype.
Yeah.
It's not a big project. It won't be perfect on all this, like all the bells and whistles, but enough for us to get something out there to test it. Because all we're trying to do is drive people into a 20-minute phone call with you, which probably the funeral homeowner might be longer than 20, but this kind of a discovery call, as it's called, right? Where you discuss with them about their situation. And then I imagine, you have some follow-up items or, the book sets the framework. And if you think that that will work for them, where they're close enough to be able to sell, then you refer them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have enough examples, the more examples you have, the more it adds to the framework where all these other folks that have followed then you have to give your framework a name. That way people can refer to it, some sort of acronym with 5 or 6 letters in it, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah. This is all standard 3-tier stuff.
Okay, I can kind of go through this like what the plan would be. And this follows a lot of stuff that we've done in the past with because I'm running through this process with the company that I'm partnered on right now, Tree Savages, that's coaching the tree service companies. And so that was essentially my guinea pig, and now I have other clients that I'm able to do this for as well. And this is kind of where you fit in with your campaign project map. And I explain it like this because a really digestible way for me to explain what I do to people is, how like Trump and Kamala, they had these campaign managers that told them, hey, we're going to put you on this podcast. You're going to speak on this stage. You're going to have a rally in this state. And it was all very strategic, right? They want to tap into the audience that is going to enable them to win. And that's exactly what I do is I help people strategically tap into the audience that is going to enable them to win in their business and just overall in life. And so that's a kind of how I paint the picture for people to understand what I do. And this is what we would do to build out your course, optimize your personal brand because you're talking about all these awards, you're already a lighthouse in your field, but the proof needs to be more visible and it needs to be held in a place where we can organize it and be able to people can see it. It needs to be more public. So that's what we would do with your personal brand, and then the rest of this is how we do that, and that's a combination of my processes and Dennis's processes at Blitz Metrics.
Right. So I think a slight clarification. I think it's public. Cody's well respected. It's not like
Mhm.
he's come up with this new idea among funeral homeowners. I mean, if we were to poll 100 random funeral homeowners, what percent would know Cody? A lot, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not been reflected back in the digital assets and the funnel and these sorts of pieces. But the chicken and the egg, at least because we can't find evidence of this, because that framework doesn't exist in the book and these high authority assets like you're talking about, we have no ability to test how that funnel's working or where the leakages are. So he
Absolutely.
has the authority, it's just not reflected into a digital structure or plus the necessary assets to do
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And this is something we would want to partner with you on. You were saying, by the way, Jack, you were saying I this, I. So it makes it sound like you're the guy. Like,
Sorry.
I mean, that's cool too. I mean, if that's what we agree, that, you do this and I just like look at it here and there. I mean, I'm happy to do whatever model, right?
Yeah. Well, if you look at what I built out here, this is a definitely collaborative. And I even laid out the tasks as I saw them, and I'm super open to changing any of these. This is kind of just what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So,
I think in terms of systems and teams, instead of
mhm.
like a consultant or a solopreneur or a contractor, like the one person says, who I'm going to do this and I've done this and I've done that. And like, that's great. But I view it as like Jack's got a whole bunch of these VAs, if you will, human VAs, and then this army of, ChatGPT VAs that do certain tasks as part of this process. And then we built a bunch of stuff too. And we've got a bunch of VAs and we have people that have done different things along the way, that different components for these other lighthouses in other industries, as you've seen. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's a huge deal, and we're happy to show you all of it or any part of it. Be fully transparent, no secret sauce or any of that, right? It's like we
Yeah.
published the book too on the TikTok things,
Mhm.
for the same reason, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Dennis, that I could kind of explain a little bit how I would tie into the process, and then you could kind of explain how you would tie into the process. But if we want to just
I mean,
do,
if he wants to individually interview each of us as if we were you were a freelancer and I'm a freelancer, and he's got to coordinate between two freelancers, like, okay, but I think he's coming at it saying, okay, well, I want to do this thing. Do you think that it'll work? And if so, what might I'm just this is the way I would approach it. How might we do this together? So he asked the question, so how are you guys working together? What's the deal? And you said we're business partners. Okay, well, what does that mean? Does that mean like Dennis is only here at the beginning and the end, and then now I can only work with Jack because Dennis is so busy doing all these other things? Like, what are you talking? Like, I don't know. I'm just guessing. If I was Cody, this is what I would say,
yeah, I understand. That makes sense.
because I think Cody knows that we have the experience doing this thing. We don't have to sell him on it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Right.
Gotcha, gotcha.
I mean, I think there's enough proof that we have done this very thing that he's trying to do. Else, why would he come ask?
For sure.
He came to us. I didn't like, hey, Cody, can we sell you some services?
Yeah, no, you're not. I'm not asking you to convince me to use you guys over whoever else or whatever might be a different option. It's
Yeah.
just trying to understand, is there a market? Is it worth our time, all of our time? And kind of what it looks like, what the next steps are, like what all is required of me, and what do we need? Is there a check? Like, do you guys give me a checklist of all the information that you need that I might have now? I mean, so
Yeah.
just those kind of things that I'll be looking to,
Yeah.
learn from you.
So we have all the checklist items necessary, all the ingredients we need for us to
Right.
cook, like Jack
Yeah.
was saying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All the elements of authority. So that's what we have in this personal branding guide, which is we're trying to automate the assembly of these components, which is a gradual kind of process. But the idea is that when we have Cody Jones, so we think of Cody Jones in the middle here, right? Funeral homes,
Mhm.
estate investor, business, family man, caretaker, all these, and then we tie it to the authority that you have. Authority as in, have you created the content on this stuff? And is it being done with the NFDA or these other brokers or other people in the industry? Does that content exist that ties together the people and those topics? Well, if you can create some shared drive, Google Drive or whatever, it has all Dropbox, it has all these assets, and the framework that Jack's talking about on organizing it, which we have VAs and us plus AI. It's a combination of all of those. We call it people process platform. It's not all tech. It's not all us. It's not all VAs. It's a smart combination of all those. Then the raw ingredients that you have, because we process this through the content factory, like we talked about, and each of these subcomponents, of course, is a module or a person or an AI bot or whatnot. But all the speaking, all the videos, the YouTubes, the relationships, and people that like all this stuff. These are the raw ingredients we need to do all these things. And then everyone else says, okay, working with Cody's amazing. He helped advise me. I just sold my home for 8 figures and blah, 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 right? Podcasts where you talk about it. We recommend for public speaking and podcasts and whatnot that you have a book that is named after your framework. Like everyone uses the same framework, but you have to give it your name so that way it's branded to you and this kind of thing, right? So
And one thing I do want to add, Dennis, just for explaining this personal brand manager, or the content drive that we have, it's not client facing. This is just where we pull everything from to be able to train the AI essentially who you are, so then we can repurpose all your content and plan your campaign and plan where your audience is, so then we can it's much more leverageable that way.
It's the structuring of it, which we call the blueprint,
Yeah.
right? We need the ingredients. You know, you want to build a skyscraper, you need to have a foundation, right? People don't see the foundation. It's for us. This is not a not a public facing document like Doc said. So this is all this. So if we think, you know, we teach at all these universities, all this stuff that shows authority, right? Like this is not some random thing I came up with the last week, right? So then if we look at you, we have this, you know, I help small businesses and I'm a real estate investor. And it's not saying these things aren't true, right? But if I'm a funeral homeowner and I've seen you speak and I've seen you with all these other people, you're well respected. Does this tell me I will help you navigate the transition of getting your funeral home ready to sell? And I
Right. Yeah. I mean,
process.
that's the thing. If we go down this path, all of this would be, it would all be reworked
Yeah.
to support the lighthouse we're offering, right? That kind of thing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not creating a whole separate social media accounts and all that just for this. I mean, it's my personal accounts. I would just refocus,
Yeah.
right, with what we're posting that and what we're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the whole point of personal brand.
Right.
Leveraging authentic relationships and content because you've walked this path, other people can follow the steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I
So
get that. And then
I think
you're talking about books and framework and all that. I mean, you guys come up with the I don't know if it's really marketing, but like the terminologies and titles
yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, because we've done enough times we have to give labels to these components.
Yeah.
We don't make promises on what kind of sales or how many referrals or how much it comes, but I think you have most of the ingredients. I think it's worth a test. It only costs a few $1,000s and a couple months to get a very basic pilot out, which then we can later come in and build the components, full out. But there's no sense in building this space shuttle when we just need to do a paper airplane first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you
What
have enough of these ingredients that I think just some videos using our framework, getting a basic book out could be the ebook. And then people freak out about the book and they're like, well, I want to make it the perfect book. Because if you haven't put a book out, then people just, it's like their first child. But we can publish an ebook in a couple of weeks very easily. And always add to it and make it a second and third edition. I mean, it's not a huge deal. I just want to get something out. So
There's no risk. There's no risk in making something so quick and so and smaller than what we have to offer. Like if we were to take everything like if we took months and months and months and built this up and then released it, there's no risk in just making it smaller, quicker, less information, right off the bat to test like that.
I think the risk is getting bogged down in lots of cycles and not being able to optimize and learn. The faster we can put, for example, the simplest thing that we could do is, and so there's different layers of like how prototype are you willing to be versus I want the perfect thing, So the simplest thing could be we put a webinar on the books in 3 weeks. Hey guys, this is Cody Jones. I sold my funeral home for 8 figures. And if you're looking to see how you might do this, we have a webinar coming up where I walk you through the exact stages and things you need to look for if you want to, because for all these reasons, you might want to look at selling, right? And as part of it, you want to know what your funeral home could be worth. And here's a checklist of items that when you talk to an acquirer or whoever, this is what they're going to look at that affects your valuation. Come to my webinar, register on the link below, and let me walk you through what I went through. I want to help you guys learn as well, because the last thing you want is to get to that point where now it's time to sell or you want to sell, but there's other things you didn't put in place. And now you wish that you had done that before. And then we put together the outline, and then it can be almost like a conversation. You could have this whole framework ready. You could have an ebook ready. You could have all these slides, or it's just a conversation like this. You see how that just putting a webinar out there, which is Zoom, like what we're doing now. This is basically a webinar too, except there's only 3 people in it, right?
Sure.
And you do the webinar, you talk for an hour, you cover the main pain points, and then you have 30 minutes of Q&A. Like, hey guys, here's the framework. Love to hear what questions you have. The mic's open. Go ahead and hit the unmute button or whatever it is, and I would love to answer your questions, right? And from that, there's going to, whatever, maybe 100 people come to the webinar and whatever, 10 to 15 ask questions and one or two is, meets the criteria or has the check, checks a lot of these boxes that, yeah, you're probably with a couple tweaks, you probably are ready for a sale, but you need to do this, this, and that. And funeral home B, you need to do this and this, right? And other
So,
people will say like, well, I'd love to follow up. Can we have a one-on-one? That was so informative. I loved your webinar, right?
Cody,
Yeah.
is your goal in messaging more towards I want to teach people how to get very, very good exits for their funeral home business, or just overall I want to teach them how to optimize their funeral home business?
Yeah, that's kind of the original question. I had thought, I could teach them how to sell or get them how to prepare for a sale and then go through with the sale. But as I started thinking about it more, and then even Dennis confirmed, like having everything is the best,
Yeah.
best of both worlds. And I mean, really everything that is required to be able to get to the sale point is everything else that is needed anyways. So, just giving them the information how to operate the business is so which one is the message? I don't know. That's where we have to maybe figure out the best way to present it and
That's
market
it.
it, right?
I don't think
Yeah.
it's like us as this high IQ brain trust coming up with what we think is the right answer.
Yeah.
I believe we are all ignorant and the data tells us what the deal is. So
The marketplace doesn't lie.
continuing on this other thing, we could do two webinars. One is, how to prepare your funeral home for sale to get maximum valuation. Another one is how do you operate a funeral home so you eliminate the headaches and you increase the profit margins or increase
Yeah.
efficiencies or whatever. And we put both of those out there and see how it performs, how many people register, what the questions are. If you don't want to do the webinar, I love the webinar format because we're getting real-time feedback from a bunch of people and it's very easy to have a webinar. I don't think you would disagree, right?
Well, you have a lot larger audience when you're not talking about selling. When you're talking about selling, the
Right.
audience is smaller. Some people think they're not ready and they may not tune in or be interested. They may be too old. They haven't even seen the content or the offering
Right.
to join the webinar. But yeah, you're opening yourself up to a lot larger audience, even just with general managers and managers for how to operate,
Mhm.
But that
maybe
goes
not even the
to
owner.
But
I
those
think
aren't
that's
separate things because the general audience, how do you operate better and be more efficient? That's kind of your top of the funnel. That's your base of the pyramid. That grows the largest audience. And of those, hey, if you want to learn more about or sign up for or get a copy of my book or whatever, put in your email address and then you send them a message every week or so. And for those who are interested in selling, then that it doesn't have to be like the beauty of putting the webinar out now is that you get a live audience to play with. But then that can be a pre-recorded webinar. There's other ways to drip them. Yeah, as you do more bottom or top of funnel, like general operating things, this is how I manage my fleet. This is how I do the people. This is how, I order supplies, whatever, all these things that eventually brings people to that webinar that, let's say we recorded that a few months ago, but it's still valid,
Yep.
right? It's they go together. It's a top, middle, bottom funnel, right?
Yeah, the selling is just going to be a component
Yeah.
for sure. I'm there. I'm with you.
cool.
So this is straightforward. Our offering is way underpriced. It's 2,500 a month, month to month,
Way underpriced from what?
for us to help you build
Yeah.
these components to amplify your authority. This whole point of high rise influence.
Mhm.
You probably should sell it at high ticket because other people said you should sell it at 100 grand. And I've done a few of these at 100 grand, but then we got to fly out and we got to do all these other things because you charge more, you got to do all these things. But the easy thing, the basic offering, which I think is the easiest kind of test approach, is we do a few months of this where our teams process the assets that you give us and we can coach you through that. And that way we very quickly get some feedback from the market. See what happens with the social post because we run $1 a day against it to see, to get more data. All of it's about testing and getting more data. Host a webinar a month out from now, right? Or if we need more time to get it to the point where, we think it's ready or, it needs to look at a certain way or, okay, fine. But either way, let's validate this and look at how people behave on maybe test different names of this thing. Maybe the framework has got too many steps. Maybe what do people say about it? I don't know. We haven't put it out there to find out.
Mhm. Yeah, we can do that. Do you guys say there's a proof of concept there? Do you work for equity?
I love working for equity. I've made way more money on
Sure.
equity than fees. I don't even care about that. I've had a taste of exits. I think once you've had a taste, I've had some friends of mine that because almost all my income comes from this. They've sold to Google or they've gone public, and I get a little piece of that pie, which has been pretty good.
Yeah. Sometimes you get to eat twice.
Well, I eat many times because I've, we this it's like this incestuous network because you build a reputation, which is the whole point of this high rise influence thing. So you built a reputation of having helped other founders. Where where do you think our deal flow comes from?
Yeah.
The fact that the people have seen so and so exited
Just
to
network. Yep.
to Google and sold for $1 billion, right? My buddy Tim McDonough, who also was at SMU, co-founder in odometry, and we got a little piece of that, sold that to Google, which is part of their whole analytics offering. I knew Tim from 25, 30 years ago.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He's a real estate investor now. Guess what? He's got $100 million of real estate in Dallas.
Very
Yeah. I paid for dinner last time though.
funny how that works.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole charge a couple $1,000s a month. That's like the cover the cost of VAs and that kind of thing. Obviously, our time's worth more than that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We're doing this for fun. This is a lot of fun. I'd do this for free. I get a kick out of this.
Well, you're welcome to if you'd like.
Well,
Okay. Yeah. No, it's
then
good. I
we have to
appreciate
structure the
you.
equity piece, right? We have to be more careful about that because otherwise we're going out of pocket with our people and all this kind of stuff and opportunity cost and this sort of thing. But
Yeah, that's what I said. If we could come up with a proof of concept or something, maybe we'll talk about it.
yeah,
I feel great about that.
Okay. Well, yeah, this has been a good conversation. It's a confirming conversation, but also motivating and all that too. So
Yeah,
where would you guys suggest we kind of next step go from here?
I think you start as a client of High Rise Influence for 2,500 a month, and that kicks our process off. You'll see the way we organize stuff inside Basecamp, which is the #1 project management system.
Yeah, I know how
All
to use
tasks
Basecamp.
that-
Our website builder slash marketer that did all of our branding for the funeral home used it, so I'm familiar with
Great.
it. Yeah.
And then I imagine along the way, for us to collect the influence, you might need to talk to your website person. Maybe there's a couple other agencies that you're working with. Maybe, we need to get all this. This sounds ridiculously simple, but it's actually the biggest challenge in the initial stage. We need to get all the stuff in one place. Otherwise, we don't have the ingredients to cook with. So you or someone else on your team or whatever has got to go back through and dig up videos and webinars, and we'll scour publicly what we can find, right? We want to get all that stuff in there and start processing through this framework, which allows us to create all these assets. We talked about the content factory. It's the same process there, right? And you'll see the tasks that spawn off of this. So there'll be one that's just one thread that's talking about, okay, what's the name of your framework and what are the steps? Do you have the examples that show what you have done with Callaway Jones and here's obviously you don't show the exact documents, you blur out certain parts, right?
Well, that's a good point. Because I don't own any of those assets anymore. I
Right.
mean, it was an
But
asset
you can talk
sale.
about the process,
I'm not an employee of the company anymore. I
right?
have a do not compete. So
But the do
yeah.
not compete is as a funeral home, right? How wide is that?
What's that?
How wide is that non-compete?
Well, I'm gonna have to go back and look at it.
Okay.
I know it's pretty tough. It's a pretty strict one compared to most.
But
Just
what did your
because
lawyers say
they
about
weren't
it,
used
right?
to, they're just because they're not in the business of buying funeral homes from 44-year-olds.
Okay.
But I'll go back and look at it and see.
You had your attorney review all that anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, you might want to ask just for
But I
fun.
didn't tell my attorney, hey, I want to go be the expert in my space and want to have use of all the videos and YouTubes and everything else that Callaway Jones owns that I built, really.
Well, we're not saying using that for marketing. So we're not competing. We're not a competing funeral. Usually, I'm not a lawyer, but
Mhm.
usually non-competes carve out direct competition.
Sure.
They don't carve out your ability to then be an expert and talk about how, you did your thing. Because how does that affect them, right?
All
Usually,
I
be a
all
carve
I think
out,
of is me helping. So they have funeral homes everywhere.
right?
I think of me potentially helping one of their competitors in some
Oh,
market.
I see. They could see that as all right.
That's all I'm concerned about. But if I'm actually building a brand and I'm referring them, helping
that's what
them
I
grow
was
their
thinking.
brand, I mean, there's the argument for that as well.
And
That's what
maybe
I was
that
thinking.
drives referrals to them too.
Right.
And imagine you've got a good enough relationship that a little phone call or whatever saying, hey, what do you guys think about this? They'd actually view that as a positive thing, and maybe they would even support this and be a sponsor.
Yeah. Right. So,
That sounds like something you should just yeah, just cross your T's and dot your I's to check that, and then maybe ask your counsel or whoever your external guy is on that just
yeah.
to be sure.
But you
Well,
know,
you don't have to use those assets anyway, right? Because you can still talk about this because you're already well known. It's not
sure.
like they need to see your bank account statements to prove that you've done this thing, right?
Right. Yeah. But if at some point we were ever offering like some kind of, I don't know, course where they receive forms or process, like a book of processes and that kind of thing, you know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, I know that's a long ways down the road, but
But that doesn't hold you up from doing this part here.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
obviously, that's more powerful. We believe the more proof you can show, and the more, I mean, things are not going to be cookie cutter, like here's every single document and operating. If you're not trying I mean, maybe you are. Maybe down the road you want to do that. But I think the core value is you've gone through the acquisition process. Here's what they don't even know what due diligence is, right? So why don't we start with that, right? Before all the complexities of, operations, right? And we want to get a pilot out. We're not trying to build the Taj Mahal, right?
Right.
That
Okay.
could be
Yeah.
like
Sounds
month
good,
six,
guys.
you know?
Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good.
I love the idea of the crawl, walk, run. Let's plan things out 1 month at a time. Here's
Mhm.
what we're gonna get out. And the risk here, Cody, is that, like we try to add too many bells to this Christmas tree. You know what I mean?
Good. Well, I like that you feel like there's no risk in just being very small and quick and I guess less, I don't know, not less thorough, but just
Nimble. It's not doing less. It's getting data faster and not wasting a lot of time building this thing or going down a certain path that isn't the right path. Like the messaging path. We don't even know what the right messaging is. That's so easy to test it.
Mhm.
But if you don't have some assets, we can't test it,
Sure.
right?
Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good. I'm willing.
Cool. Well, Mr. Jack's going to send you a link and
All right.
welcome as a new client of High Rise Influence.
Let's go.
Okay. And are there other people that are on your team that we should pull in? Do you have some VAs, some marketing people, operations
Yeah.
people? Just you? Oh, it'll be easy then. So we don't have a
Yeah,
lot
me,
of
myself, and I right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And I have time, so we're okay.
And you have my cell phone?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do.
Do you have Jack's cell phone? Let me see if I
I
can.
don't. I
Let
don't
me
have
add.
jazz.
I'm
We were
old-fashioned
connected on
like
email.
this. I know we have the internet and all this, but I'm just
No, I don't have Jack. Jack's what's yours? I'll write that down.
I'm adding you guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
So let me know if you got it.
Yeah, this is exciting. And Cody, I just want to say one thing. I over the past little over a year, I've been doing a lot of PR stuff and personal branding stuff and I've worked on some pretty big brands, but I've also worked on some people that it was more, and there's a reason I don't use the word PR in what I do, is because a lot of times there's fraudulent things like people are buying followers or they're selling courses on things that they are
Yeah.
do not actually be an expert on. Like you've done the thing. Now it's time to teach the thing.